Catholic commentary.
You're returning a service. 2122.
Spiritual warfare.
A1's clear. See no trigger.
Stay ready so you don't have to get ready.
Jesus 911.
Are you tired of winning yet? I'm certainly not. Two-man card, Jesus 911, Jess Romero, Eddie Chavez, talking about spiritual warfare. And today, just want to remind you that the month of February is dedicated to the Holy Family of our Lord. This special devotion began back in the 17th century. It proposes the Holy Family of Jesus, Mary, and Joseph as the model of all Christian households, as the model of virtue for all Christian households. And Eddie, I'll tell you one thing. If every single Catholic tried to pattern their family life after the Holy Family, Joseph, Mary, and Jesus, there would be no diabolic affliction.
That's true, Jess. And you know what? We'd be a much better society. We wouldn't need these podcasts if that were true.
Exactly. Eddie, I want to talk the first segment here about the human soul. And there's a chart that I'm looking at, and let me see if Mr. Engineer can put the chart on the screen as we're talking about it. But this chart was put together by Father Chad Ripperger and Kyle Clement. It's called the Faculties of the Human Person. So just remember, the word faculty means power. Power, okay? That's all it means. The power of the soul. So let's look at the top right where it says, the proper way for the soul to operate is that the flesh is servant to the soul. So if you look at the chart, the very bottom, the instincts, the desires, the emotions, these things should be servants to the intellect and the will. Now, people become diabolically afflicted because they have it the other way around. They have an improper relationship in their interior life. In other words, what is improper is when the soul, that's the intellect and will, is hostage to the flesh, the emotions, the desires, and the instincts. That's improper. That's when you have diabolic affliction. Because, again, the flesh is supposed to be subservient to the mind. The visible, which is the flesh, is supposed to be subservient to the invisible, which is the intellect and the will. On the chart, there's a triangle to the left. On the top, it says Catholic. On the bottom, it says pagan. What that means is that a Catholic is supposed to live their life, following their intellect and their will, and everything falls in place. But the pagan, the person who's not a person of faith, they live their life following their instincts, their desires, their emotions. And this ends up basically darkening the intellect and the will and weakening the will. Also in the chart, and just once again, I'll ask Mr. Engineer if he could just keep it on for this first segment. There it is. Yeah. If you notice the top where it talks about the faculties of the human person, Eddie, you see the shaded area of the chart, right? You see the shaded area?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, the shaded area. So starting from the memory, the emotion, the desires, and the instincts, that's basically the area of the soul that the demons have access to.
Right.
The demons have access to the memory, the emotion, the desires, and the instincts. Notice, Eddie, when you interview a lot of people for deliverance sessions, they're telling you, I hear voices in my head. I can't get these bad thoughts out of my mind. These memories are constantly just plaguing me, or constantly just tormenting me. It's because this all comes from St. Thomas Aquinas and the great doctors of the church, that God has permitted the demons to have access to the memories, the emotions, the desires, and the instincts. And so if you look at the chart up there, the shaded areas, that's what demons have access to. Now, the highest faculties of the soul, the intellect and the will, they are under your dominion. The demons don't have access to your intellect or to your will. So when somebody uses the Flip Wilson analogy and they say the devil made me do it, that's plain false. The devil can't make you do anything. The devil can just try through, again, and the way angels communicate and demons, here's a fancy word that St. Thomas Aquinas uses, okay? So we're going to bump up your game here. It's called illumination. Think about a flashlight. Eddie, when we were cops and you work the night shift, the flashlight is your best friend. And so what do? Like when you're chasing a bad guy, he's running, you're going through the alley, he jumps in a dumpster, and you're looking for him at nighttime, you and your partners. Yes, I think it went this way, I think it went that way. And you got your flashlight out, and all of a sudden you illuminate the dumpster. And there he is. There he is. You illuminated the bad guy. That's the way demons operate. They illuminate thoughts, images, phantasms, words into the memory, which affects the emotions, which affects the desires, and which affects our instincts. And so, again, just to make it very clear, when you're looking here at the power of the soul or the faculties of the soul, which are here in descending order: intellect, will, memory, emotion, desires, instincts. Demons have access. God has permitted them to have access to the memories, to the emotions, to the desires, and to the instincts. But demons have no access to the intellect or to the will. Now, here's one of the reasons, by the way, if you look at the chart in between memory and emotion, where you'll find, for example, many exorcists like Father Ripperger and others, they'll say it's not a good thing to be going from one Catholic conference to another saying, I was the next Satanist, I was the next Satanist, I was the next witch, I was the next witch, I was the next sorcerer, here's what I did. Every week you're getting invited to a different speaking engagement, and you're talking about the fact that once upon a time you were possessed or you had psychological compatibility with a demon. Now, why is it that many exorcists say this is not a good practice to be doing this? Well, because if you look at the chart, it says there, you have to separate the memory from the emotion to separate the story from the event. In other words, every time the victim tells the story, that repetition empowers the demon. Again, every time that victim tells the story of how the demon raped them, the demon did this to them, guess what? And you're going one week after another to one conference, to one parish mission. Guess what? That repetition empowers the demon. And what it does, it keeps that memory firmly implanted in your mind. And you want to get healed of these things that are in your mind and in your memory and imagination. You want the light of Christ to heal you. You're not going to be healed by repeating that story over and over again of the way you were possessed and you were levitating in your mom and dad's house, et cetera, et cetera. Eddie, is this chart helpful? It's very detailed.
Yeah, just very helpful. I mean, just the fact you're talking about the emotions here, the memory. I think it's a lot of human. It's our frailty. It's one of the things that we do normally as human beings. So whenever we talk, for example, we're at a family function and we start talking about the way, maybe an argument that happened within the family, and then it grows and it becomes implanted in our mind. So everybody's viewpoint, it changes a little bit with our emotions. That sticks in our head, like, oh yeah, that did happen. Oh, maybe yes. I should say it like that because it's more damaging to the person that did it. So I think it's our human nature that does that. And so when somebody that's been afflicted with a demon does that, the demons have access to this part of our faculties, then it sticks with them in that way. So I felt a little different. So now it becomes, I morphed into something. Now, I'm not saying it can't happen. It can happen. However, people remember it in a certain way. So it's something we have to treat very carefully. And like you said, Jess, it's not something that we want to recount all the time. Something like this is not something we want to go over and over again.
Yeah, because all you're doing is you're just embedding it in your mind like tar on your boots, just like stepping on like tar.
Yeah. You can't get it off.
It's just hard to get it out.
Yeah.
And quite the opposite. We want to heal ourselves of those we want to heal our memories and our mind, our imagination of some of those sins that we've committed in the past. And you don't heal by constant repetition. So Eddie, in fact, the next segment that we're going to talk about is prayer weapons and tactics. It goes right into this, so it really segues back into this article. And so we're going to be going deeper into the faculties of the human person. You're listening to Jesus 911 two-man car. That chart, again, that's put out by Father Chad Ripperger and Liber Christo, is called the faculties of the human person. This is the way the St. Thomas Aquinas and the great giants of the church, this is the way they describe the human soul, the powers of the human soul. Because everything that we do, everything you do right now with your body comes from your soul. That's Catholic teaching, okay? The soul acts through the body. And so we call the things that happen within the soul the faculties or the powers of the soul. And once again, highest faculty, intellect, the will, that's always under your dominion. Demons don't have access to that. But then now you have after that, lower than that, you got the memory, the emotions, the desires, the instincts. Demons do have faculties to that. Those are called the lower faculties of the soul. And those are the areas where demons, God permits them to have access to. And that's why we'll be in a spiritual battle until our heart stops, because demons have certain access to our lower faculties of the soul. All right, Jesus 911, we're going to talk about prayers, weapons, and tactics next. Stick around, don't go anywhere.
Here's a great way to support Virgin Most Powerful Radio. Do you have an old car you want to get rid of, motorcycle, RV, or boat? Simply call 855-500-7433, and when they sell that vehicle, a portion of that money comes right back to support Virgin Most Powerful Radio. It's an easy way to do it. I want to thank you for it. Call 855-500-7433. God love you and your family.
How does the baby move in your tummy? How does the baby eat? Can the baby hear me? How did the baby get in there?
Wow, a pregnancy can sure generate a lot of questions. But what's important is that a baby is a baby, inside and out of the womb. Not just after birth, but 9 months before. At conception.
That's right. Every baby is a miracle. Hello, my name is Marianne Kuharski. I'm the director of Pro-Life Across America. If you know someone who is pregnant or in need of alternatives or assistance or would like to support the work of Pro-Life Across America, please visit our website at prolifeacrossamerica.org, or better yet, simply dial pound 250 on your cell phone and say the keyword pro-life. Pro-Life Across America is non-political and totally educational.
A baby's heart is beating 18 days from conception.
Pro-life across America, the Billboard people.
Buying or selling your home or your business property? This is Terry Barber. Real Estate for Life underwrites the Terry and Jesse Show, and they can connect you to one of 900 pro-life real estate agents around the world. And when they receive their referral fee, they will give 80% of it to a pro-life organization. Wow, that's 80%. realestateforlife.org, 877-LIFE-US1.
Now, back to Jesus 911. If this call is not an emergency, dial 888-526-2151.
Soul Patrol, Jesus 911, two-man car, Jess Romero, Eddie Chavez. We're talking now on the topic of Liber Christo, called Prayers, Weapons, and Tactics. And it's going to get towards the end of towards the end of this chapter, it gets right into the faculties again. So it segues into what we just did on segment number 1. So remember, 1 Samuel 17:45, it says, David answered the Philistine, you come against me with sword and spear and scimitar, but I come against you in the name of the Lord of hosts, that means armies, the God of armies of Israel, that you have insulted. So, in the cover of the Ranger Handbook, Roger's Rules for Rangers, is a simple disclaimer, quote, not for the weak or faint-hearted, close quote. The ancients would prefer the phrase, gird your loins. Although both communicate the same message, that David raced towards Goliath with staff and slingshot implies that he had tied up his tunic around his waist, as is customary for soldiers. To gird your loins meant tying your tunic around your waist and crotch areas to be more mobile and to be protected by the extra padding of the layered material. Accordingly, it means to prepare for battle or to man up in modern parlance. God commanded Jeremiah at 1:17 to gird your loins and be fearless in proclaiming the truth. Likewise, God addressed Job out of the storm and commanded him in Job 8:38, verse 3, gird up your loins now, like a man, close quote. You will need to gird your loins and be courageous and bold if you want to win this fight. By no means does this imply that only men can gird their loins. Recall discussion on St. Teresa, and on the importance of moral courage. St. Peter uses this phrase for all Christians to teach the importance of obedience and reverence. He uses the phrase gird your loins in the context of sojourning and allusions to Passover in 1 Peter chapter 1, verses 13 to 19. St. Peter writes, the first pope, therefore gird up the loins of your mind, live soberly, and set your hopes completely on the grace to be brought to you at the revelation of Jesus Christ. Like obedient children, do not act in compliance with the desires of your former ignorance, but as he who called you is holy, be holy yourselves in every aspect of your conduct. For it is written, be holy because I am holy. Now, if you invoke as Father him who judges impartially according to each one's works, conduct yourselves with reverence during the time of your sojourning, realizing that you were ransomed from your futile conduct handed on by your ancestors, not with perishable things like silver or gold, but with the precious blood of Christ as of a spotless, unblemished lamb, close quote. You have all you need to win this battle, so be holy in every aspect of your conduct, and the Lord will guide your stone. You have a sling, a bag of 5 stones, and a staff. Now gird your loins and let us turn to how to identify enemy tactics. Eddie, pick it up.
It goes on here. It says, let me go through my notes. Okay. This is lesson 11. This is demonic tactics. It says, by now you recognize that David beat Goliath not with conventional weapons and tactics, but by using guerrilla warfare. Roger's Rangers were successful because they rejected the traditional European style of fighting, which was formation of troops lined up in the open with bright jackets, etc., fighting at set times and seasons under conventional rules of engagement. Rogers counseled his men to fight more covertly. When you're on the march, act the way you would if you were sneaking up on a deer. See the enemy first. In spiritual combat, to see the enemy first requires sanctified vision that only comes through spiritual purity. In this section, we will then teach you the tactics that make for good spiritual ranging. That is, how to maintain interior silence on the march so as not to draw the demon's attention, and how to sneak up in stealth. Okay, it says, see the enemy first. Oh, I'm sorry, hold on. It says, see the enemy first. You need to understand that his patrol teams and tactics look like. This means you must understand how your own spiritual faculties work, because this is how the enemy sees you and sizes you up. After that, we will discuss the second element of combustible prayer and the importance of supernatural merit as it relates to spiritual warfare. First, you must know how your enemy finds your vulnerabilities. It goes on. This section describes the basic Catholic understanding of the human person's faculties according to St. Thomas Aquinas, and forms the basis for what is known as Thomistic psychology. Recall the previous discussion on St. Augustine and the human person as capex Dei, meaning that you not only are capable to receive the divine, but also can share in divinity as your rightful inheritance through baptism. He states that it was appropriate that God, who is three in one, made man in his own image as one person, but with three spiritual faculties. Thus, God is three divine persons, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, but is one God. Man has three spiritual faculties. Here, what here we refer to as the higher, intermediate, and lower, but he is one person. In that spiritual reality, we reflect the mystery of the Blessed Trinity.
Stop there.
Yes.
I find that interesting. That's not a coincidence. God is three in one, and the human soul is also three in one. The higher faculties, the midpoint faculties, and the lower faculties. So, in other words, you could see the way God, you could see the Trinitarian aspect of the human person just in the way God compartmentalized the soul. The higher faculties, the mid-level faculties, and the lower faculties. I just found that fascinating.
That's image and likeness of God. That's why we're created in that image, right?
Yep, that's it. Bingo. Yeah. Continue. Yeah.
Okay, it says, in that spiritual reality, we reflect the mystery of the Blessed Trinity. This is precisely what the demon militates against. And we expand on it briefly here because this is how the demon sees us. The human person can be seen as having three faculties or interior powers / capabilities. Higher faculties, that's the intellect and will, and we can insert free will there because that's what we're given.
Exactly.
Intermediate or transitional faculties, memory and emotion, and lower faculties, appetite and instinct. Understanding the inner movements and thoughts of and emotions help to identify areas of vulnerability that the demon exploits. Unchecked, the demon even finds his own nourishment in your interior defects. That's wild. Towards the end of her life, Venerable Sister Lucia Fatima stated that we are living in a time of diabolic disorientation. What we see in the socio-political realm, however, is a large-scale manifestation of what is at work in countless souls today. The right ordering of the instincts and appetites, for example, means that the flesh must be ordered to the soul, while a diabolic disorientation of the interior faculties means that the intellect and will are slaves of the instincts and appetites.
Stop there, Eddie. Every single person that's diabolically afflicted that we've dealt with, that's exactly the case. Their flesh, their lower appetites, that's what drives them, is their lower appetites, and their lower appetites have basically shut down their higher faculties. They've darkened them. They operate from instinct. They operate from desire. They operate from emotion, and they shut down that obfuscate, that darkens the intellect and it weakens the will. Every single person that's diabolically afflicted operates from the lower faculties first, where the holy person, let's just take a saint, for example, St. John Paul II, St. Padre Pio, they operate from the highest faculties. That's what drives the car, the intellect and the will. The diabolic person, what drives the car? Instincts, desires, emotions. Does that make sense?
That reminds me of analogies from police work, because I remember when I used to work West Hollywood, I remember talking to girls on the street, and then they were beat up. And I remember they said, well, what happened? I said, well, she said, well, my pimp beat me up. Well, just the pimps operate on that exact thing. They operate on desires, on their instincts. They want to survive on the street. And so they operate like that. They're controlled by that. So they've darkened their upper faculties, and now they're operating from desires and emotions. And that's how they live their life. That's something that's very dangerous. So I suspect that a lot of people that are involved in these things, the cartel members, et cetera, are probably possessed, Jess, I would say.
Oh, at least, if not fully possessed, because again, there's also a thing called perfect possession, which the priest, Father Malachi Moore, describes perfect possession as when a human person has a symbiotic relationship with a demon. They've opened the door to the demon. They're like buddies with them. And it's called they have psychological compatibility with the demon. They've aligned their will with the demon. So the demon doesn't have to, the demon basically drives the car, and there's there's a good picture I was looking at last night. I showed it to Juanita. The Jews had an understanding of this way back. The Jews use a term, daibuk, which they call daibuk a clinging spirit. And so I was looking at some Jewish rabbis hundreds, thousands of years ago as they were describing these demons. Daibuk, a clinging spirit, is a demon. The way the Jews drew it, there's a guy who's carrying a demon in his back. It's kind of like you would carry, like firemen's carry, at the academy, you carry your partner, you're in 100 yards with a guy in your back. So a Jew is carrying this demon in his back, and the person is all hunched over and he's in pain because this demon is heavy. That's called in Catholic theology a clinging spirit. That thing just on top of you, and it makes your life heavy and oppresses you. And the Jews called it a daibuk. That goes way back, thousands of years. This understanding, and so that's a type of possession because you're carrying the demon on you. It's called a clinging spirit. Then the other spirit you have, it's in Isaiah chapter 6, verse 2. I think it says that the angels, some translations say hover, or are above the throne of God, hover. Think about a helicopter or a drone. So there are other spirits that you invite in your life, so they don't necessarily go into your body in like possession. What they do is they follow you like a drone. Everywhere you go, the toilet, you get in your car, you go to bed, they're following you. That's all and that's what angels, they follow. They're like drones. It's in the Bible, Isaiah chapter 6, verse 2. So demons are either go into the body, possession, which is the force form of attack, or jump on your back and make you hold them like a piggyback, 200-pound heavy guy on your back, and you're supposed to carry him around all day. That's called a clinging spirit in Hebrew, a daibuk. And then you got the ones Isaiah talks about, were those demons that just are over you, follow you. They hover over you like a drone or a helicopter. So those are the ways. These are the ways that people invite demons into their life. All of them are horrible. I don't want any of those, Eddie.
Yes, I would need it. The funny thing is, you think about this demon hovering over you, observes everything that you do, everything that you say. So, people have this thing that oh, well, this curandero or this psychic remembers that something that only me and my mom talked about when I was 14 years old. And I don't know how he knows it. He must have some connection.
Hold that thought, Eddie. Hold that thought. Heartbreak. We'll be right back. Jesus 911. Stick around.
Leviticus 11:44 says, "Consecrate yourselves and be holy, because I am holy." St. Vincent Pallotti said, "You must be holy in the way God asks you to be holy." God does not ask you to be a Trappist monk or a hermit. He wants you to sanctify the world and your everyday life. May God show us the path to holiness and help us to follow it all the days of our life.
This is a catechetical minute from Virgin Most Powerful Radio.
Just as the gestation of our first birth took place in water, so the water of baptism truly signifies that our birth in the divine life is given to us in the Holy Spirit. Catechism of the Catholic Church, number 694. The most basic elements of human life are often the actual tools that God uses in our relationship with Him. Water is one such element God has used, from the flood, to the Red Sea, to the Jordan River. Father, you have made all things with this in mind. May we recognize these signs of your love in creation.
This has been a catechetical minute from Virgin Most Powerful Radio.
Buying or selling your home or your business property? This is Terry Barber. Real Estate for Life underwrites the Terry and Jesse Show. And they can connect you to one of 900 pro-life real estate agents around the world. And when they receive their referral fee, they will give 80% of it to a pro-life organization. Wow, that's 80%. realestateforlife.org, 877-LIFE-US1.
Now, back to Jesus 911. If this call is not an emergency, dial 888-526-2151.
Soul Patrol, Jesus 911, two-man car. Jess Romero, Eddie Chavez talking about Catholic spiritual warfare. We're talking right now about the demonic tactics, and we're also going to move into the Thomistic psychology, a spiritual remedy in the face of diabolic disorientation. Eddie, you were making some comments before we hit a hard break. Go ahead.
Yeah, just exactly. A lot of people, when we interview people, they talk to us about, well, I went to the psychic, I went to this curandero, I went to the shaman, and they knew something that nobody ever knew. It was a conversation I had with my mom, for example, when I was 14 years old. And so now that this person tells me what is going on, so they must have some kind of special power. And that's how people give confidence to some of these people that are directing them in the wrong path, right? These people they're spiritual warfare gods while they're afflicted. And that's why the demons can observe everything, just because, like you said in Isaiah 6, there's demons hovering over us, and they can hear what's going on. So be careful when you say, I wish this or I wish that, because when you think that nobody can hear you, I think somebody can hear you.
Yeah. And also, remember, they also could jump on your back and just make you carry them. That's called a clinging spirit. So they're hearing everything you're saying.
Yeah.
This is why I like what the way Kyle Clemens says it. He says, the mind, he says, you have to really guard the mind, because he says, not only angels communicate to you on that channel.
That's right. Everybody's tuned in, Jess.
Exactly.
Supernatural world is tuned into that.
It's like gangbangers that get these police scanners and the cartels, and they're listening to the police traffic. This is exactly what demons are doing.
Right.
They're also listening to the traffic. So this is why, again, the Bible's constantly telling us that we have to guard our minds.
Exactly. I love it.
Go ahead, Eddie.
I love that.
Pick it up.
Okay, where were we here? Okay, so it says, as the chart shows, the faculties include power, intermediate, and higher powers. The ascending order lists each faculty: higher faculties of intellect and will, intermediate faculties of memory and emotion, and lower faculties of appetite and instinct. The chart begins with an event and how each faculty is understood in response to that event. The upper right edge of the chart asserts what is understood by the term to be properly ordered. The proper order is the flesh as servant of the soul, but this is damaged in the effects of the fall and driven to disorientation. The lower faculties, if left unchecked, seek to invert the right order, to flip upside down the right order due to concupiscence. What's concupiscence? Concupiscence is our tendency to sin. In any instance where we have a tendency to sin. We should actually talk about the previous discussion on baptism and lingering effects of disordering of passion. We distinguish between the story and the event because the story is often filled with emotion. This is talking about our memory. It can differ from the actual acts of the event itself. Thus, as we note, the meaning and salvific purpose embedded in the event is often clouded or hidden. When you purify your faculties and grow in virtue, the event becomes imbued with meaning and ordered to Christ.
Let's stop right there. There's a whole lot there.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot there. So I'm going to try to simplify it here. Okay. So the powers of the soul, anytime you hear the word faculty, all it means is power, the power of the soul. The soul is invisible. It's pure spirit. It's immaterial. What are the powers of the soul? There you have it. The higher faculties, intellect and will. Transitional faculties, those are midpoint, memory and emotion. Lower faculties, appetites and instincts. The last four, the transitional faculties and the lower faculties, demons have access to. And so everything when it comes to spiritual warfare, what we're trying to do is we're trying to get the person that has an intellectually, spiritually, and physically disordered life. We're trying to teach them to live an intellectual, spiritual, and physical ordered life. And sometimes that's quite a feat, Eddie, because some people have been so steeped in such bad living. They've just for years and years, repetitively, that sometimes I'm telling you, it is like pulling weeds. And somebody like Eddie or myself and other lay people involved in this, we're not exorcists. Okay, well, we're not exorcists. People ask me, Jesse, are you an exorcist? No, I'm not an exorcist. You don't see the Roman collar on me. Only a Catholic priest is an exorcist or can do exorcisms. However, there are people like Eddie and myself and others that we're just called operators. All we do is we help out priests and we go down range because priests are busy. Okay, they can't do all the minutia. It takes lay people to help them out in this area, and we just go down range and we start trying to provide catechesis, try to provide basic spiritual direction, provide, okay, you got to stop doing this. You got to stop living with your girlfriend. You got to stop smoking marijuana. Some of the obvious things that you don't need a priest to do. Tell the guy or the girl, okay, you got to start coming back to mass every Sunday. Oh, I haven't made my confirmation. You got to sign up for RCIA. You need to make all your sacraments. You need to start coming to mass every Sunday. You need to start praying every single day. If you don't know how, look at your iPhone. There's prayers on a lot of Catholic apps, or you could buy a Catholic prayer book. You got to start praying, grace before meals. So what somebody like Eddie and myself do is we're just providing all the intel that they need to know. It's just basic Catholic intel. But because so many people in our church, Eddie, are so uncatechized, so unevangelized, that even something basic like you and me will say, okay, you have to start going to mass every Sunday, starting this Sunday, and go to confession on Saturday before you go to mass on Sunday. To them, it's like, not like, really? I've got to do that? That's the state of our church right now, Eddie.
No, it's true, Jess. The things that people are doing now, Jess, really it just amazes me. We're seeing this girl, and she was a witch before, but it started when she was 10 years old, when her mom had some kind of mental disorder. But she was talking to us and meeting with us and praying with us. And she told me once on the phone, she goes, well, you know what? She goes, I have to call the prayer line. I go, hold on a second. You have to do what? I have to call the prayer line. It's a line where you call in and people pray with you. And I said, wait a minute. You have to be very careful when you're doing that. Do you know the person you're talking to is a Catholic? Are they into the spiritual understanding of what we believe? And she goes, well, no, but they help me pray. I go, you know what? This person you're calling could be another witch. And what are you doing? You're just getting your information. That's why they're low information, Jess, because they're getting information from people that have no idea what they're doing, and they just make it worse. So we had to stop this girl, but yeah, that's how people think. They think about that. They let their emotions take. I'm hearing knocking in the house, and I need the father to come over. I go, that's not how it works. You have to pray. You have to do things that people are not used to, that people like you are not used to doing. And that's why Jess says it's like pulling weeds. You got to make the difference and tell the difference and pull the weeds out. That's the issue.
Yeah. And also, unfortunately, a lot of Catholics, and I think it's been through an abuse or a poor catechesis of the charismatic renewal. A lot of Catholics think that Catholicism is like rubbing a genie bottle, or rubbing a bottle, a genie's going to come out, or like white magic. All you got to do is go to this priest or this person who's got the powers of healing, and everything's going to be okay. And again, Father Abraham Moore, he even says a lot of Catholics, they have their view of Catholicism is like white witchcraft. They think it's just, one prayer, this one priest, this one lay person, bam, that's it, I'm healed.
Yeah, just people come to the parish for the parish that I attend, and they want the priest so bad because the information is out. He's an exorcist, and he's actually not even an exorcist.
He's trained as an exorcist, by the way. Yeah, he's been trained as an exorcist. Like
Yeah.
Leo, yeah, but he hasn't got the mandate, right? Yeah, he hasn't.
Right, he doesn't have the mandate from the bishop, but they come there and these people are so disruptive when they get there. This is like the second person or third person that they have to call the police on because they won't leave. They drive down from Central California and they want to see the priest, and it's just not going to happen like that. They want it their way. They want to rub that bottle. They want the priest to wave the crucifix over them and they'll be fine. That's what they think.
Yeah, again, that's just the horrible catechesis that's been going on for the last 60 years, and that's why there's good podcasters now. There's good Catholic lay websites, and there's shows just like this. We're just trying to provide the catechesis that the bishops should be doing, but that's another topic. Yeah, Eddie, you want to pick it up?
Yeah, it says, in Catholic anthropology, the faculties of the human person operate with the help of grace and virtue to avoid vice. C.S. Lewis stated simply that a rightly ordered soul looks like the head, he says, rules the belly through the chest. That is, the intellect, the head, or the seat of the intellection, chooses the good and governs the lower faculties of instincts and appetites, the belly, or the seat of our lowest natural movements most accessible to the demon. By instructing the will, the chest, the seat of volition, to govern by in accord with the good. To be improperly ordered or to be diabolically disoriented is to place the soul as hostage or even a slave to the flesh. When the chest mortifies the belly in the flesh, the result is an increase in temperance. As Clement states, temperance is key because when we have an immoderate behavior, such as overeating or even excessive devotion that works against vocation, the will must be engaged to fast from this behavior for some period of time. The result is moderation and increased self-control.
We'll pick it up on the next segment, Jesus 911. We're talking about the faculties, the powers of the soul, and we're talking about how to properly order them. We'll be right back. Stick around. Jesus 911.
Hey, Terry Rodriguez. I'm a monthly donor here in Phoenix, Arizona. Retired Phoenix cop. And I've met Jesse before. And I just want to tell you guys were on fire yesterday on the Terry and Jesse show. You guys were on fire. I went to bed thinking, man, what an unwinnable war. But when I got up, I listened to you guys. You know, you guys are doing good work, man. Doing God's work and keep doing it. I know it gets exhausting sometimes, but there's people out here that really need the inspiration and the evangelization that you guys are giving us. So my best to you. And I'm Eddie Rodriguez. I'm a monthly donor and proud of it.
This message is for you. A great man once said that evil is powerless if the good are unafraid. Well, you and I have a rendezvous with destiny. We'll preserve for our children this, the last best hope of man on earth, or we'll sentence them to take the last step into 1,000 years of darkness. We're at war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars. And it's been said if we lose this war, and in so doing lose this great way of freedom of ours, history will report with the greatest astonishment that those that had the most to lose did the least to prevent it from happening. Well, I think it's high time now that we ask ourselves if we still even know the freedoms that were intended for us by our founding fathers. Every generation of Americans needs to know that freedom exists, not to do what you like, but having the right to do what you ought. You weren't made to fit in, my brothers and sisters. You are born to stand out. Set yourself apart from this corrupt generation. Be saints. God bless you.
Buying or selling your home or your business property? This is Terry Barber. Real Estate for Life underwrites the Terry and Jesse Show. And they can connect you to one of 900 pro-life real estate agents around the world. And when they receive their referral fee, they will give 80% of it to a pro-life organization. Wow, that's 80%. realestateforlife.org, 877-LIFE, US 1.
Now, back to Jesus 911. If this call is not an emergency, dial 888-526-2151.
Are you tired of winning yet? Not me. Keep it coming. Keep it coming. Let's make America Catholic again, or make it Catholic for once. So we're talking about here the faculties and the powers of the soul. It says, conversely, diabolic disorientation of the interior self means that the belly rules the head through the chest. Oh, you already read that, Eddie. No, you didn't.
No, I haven't.
Yeah, this inversion is counter to a Catholic, sacramental-oriented life where Christ is the center of the soul. In the chart, the vertical arrows on the left side indicate this. The Catholic interiority is reordered through sacramental baptism, which removes the effects of original sin. This reordering means a special infusion of sanctifying grace by the ontological, at the level of being and not merely symbolic, presence of the Blessed Trinity now residing in the soul. Thus, the intellect receives an infusion of the theological virtues of faith, hope, and charity, providing special assistance to choose the good. Likewise, the effect upon the will in the state of grace means an orientation towards the will of the Father. Specifically, what Adam and Eve possessed in the original state was original justice, sanctifying grace, and preternatural gifts of original integrity, freedom from disordered desires, or the right ordering of the spiritual faculties. They had original innocence, which means freedom from concupiscence, and original immortality, freedom from death. The fall, however, introduced a disordering of the human interiority. The effect of the fall means a disordering of the faculties and necessitates the mortification of the lower faculties so as to experience freedom and conformity to God in the higher. According to St. Thomas and St. Bede, there are 4 wounds resulting from the fall. Number 1, original sin, loss of sanctifying grace. Number 2, ignorance, lack of knowledge. Number 3, concupiscence, disordering of passions. Number 4, sickness and mortality, corruption of bodily flesh. Thus, in God's creative design, the human person is ordered towards God as the highest good in the garden before the fall. The intellect and will, the higher faculties, are what man has in common with the angels. You must, therefore, order all lower faculties by subjecting them to higher. Thus, the Catholic arrow descending to the lower and base faculty, which is most concerned with preservation of one's mortal life or flesh. The pagan conversely operates with a primacy in the lower instinct, and his life choices begin with the thought of what is good for his own life, the flesh, and preservation of my bodily needs, seeking what brings pleasure and self-gratification. Survival by instinct and disordered appetites are what man has most in common with the base of lower faculties found in animals. Then again, the next page, Eddie, we have on page 260, we have the graph that we just showed on section number 1. Want to pick it up from there?
Sure, I'll do that. The next layer shows that under each faculty lies a specific human response necessary to strengthen that faculty. For instance, if there is a defect or weakness in the intellect, then it typically manifests itself in heresy or ignorance of a church dogma or doctrine, what the Catholic Church teaches about man and God, life and death, sin and grace. In addition,
Eddie, let me ask you, you've seen this before. When you interview people that are diabolically afflicted, some are even possessed, and you start asking them sometimes basic questions on God and the Catholic faith, don't you notice that they hold to heresy? They'll say, no, Mary had other kids, no, or something, no, the devil can read my mind. No, he can read my mind. Yeah, he knows, he's everywhere. He can read my. You'll find people that are diabolically afflicted, they will hold on to a heresy, and that heresy is what gives a demon. It gives them the ability to just continue holding on to them and afflicting them.
Yeah, just the true. And you know, the wound number 2 that they list was it St. Bede, and they listed that the wounds, the 4 wounds. I think number 2 is probably the one that we see most in this ministry, just because lack of knowledge. It's so prevalent that these people have no idea what the church teaches, why they teach it, or anything. And these pages here give me a better perspective on the Godhead, how perfect the Godhead is, just how everything is just follows Jesus. It's just beautiful. It's a beautiful, in my opinion, this is a beautiful part of the book.
Yeah, Eddie, I think this is probably one of the most important chapters of the book for anybody involved in deliverance ministry, because now it gives you the ability to understand the people you're talking to and that come to you, because they fall under this chart. They live their life governing their thoughts or actions or behavior, governed by their lower faculties, which again demons have access to. And so what people want to do in our instance, we want to turn this upside down. We want to get the person where they turn their life upside down, and now they're governing their behavior from their higher faculties and their will, formed by the Word of God, formed by the Catholic faith. That's really the challenge. It isn't just waving a wand over them and say this prayer and they're all healed, and everybody goes home living happily ever after like these Hollywood fake movies. No, it's turning a ship to get them saying, quit behaving and following your instincts and your passions, and to train them to start following their intellect, formed by a life of prayer and faith and sacraments. That's the challenge right there.
Yeah,
and it's not easy. And it's not easy.
What you're describing there just is an inversion, and we see that even in some movies. We see the inversion because that's a dog fighting, right? Air Force teaches dog fighting, and they have to invert. Sometimes they have to invert to gain the upper hand, and that's what we're talking about here: is inverting the lifestyle of those that are afflicted, so they can better follow Jesus and understand Jesus. Because without the catechesis, just nobody's going to know anything. That's where I think we failed in the last 50 years. We failed to provide proper catechesis that would prevent spirits from afflicting people, right? That's the issue.
Yep. Go ahead, pick it up from there.
So it says, in addition, a weakened will is strengthened by mortification or the deprivation of the flesh, specifically of the 5 senses. Accordingly, the prayer prescription is intended to strengthen your intellect and will through obedience, discipline, and the imposition of order. In cutting off stimulation to the senses through the eyes and ears, and the insatiable desire for information or stimulation, the media fast draws the soul to a desert experience, which opens the soul to encounter God. Okay, so this also helps to bring the instinct into right order under the soul. According to Clement, God's will, always and everywhere, is our salvation, and we must come to see everything in the sight of salvation. Everything that happens to us, therefore, has salvific potential. In the recollection of the event, emotions tend toward either criticism, finding fault, a negative, or compliment, thankful and positive. When asked how someone can order the memory to the intellect, Clement explained, "We must order our memory to salvation, recognizing that every event in our past has a salvific purpose. This means to take our memory and ask, how could this event be used for my or our salvation? This requires a willingness to suffer for those who cannot or will not. In order to do this, God himself, let me start that over again. In order to do this, God, not the self, must be the center of our focus. Our memories can drive us to sin and despair, or they can increase in us a thirst for the salvation of souls."
Yeah, that's an important point, Eddie. As somebody's suffering, most Catholics, because they're not properly catechized, they don't know what to do with their suffering. All they do is walk around and drop F-bombs, and they're angry all day, and they're pissed off at everybody, and they're full of hate and rage. instead of using that suffering and say, okay, 3 o'clock, I'm going to sit down, kneel down, do my divine mercy, offer this pain to Christ. Other than, 12 noon Angelus, okay, I'm going to take this pain and I'm going to just offer it at 12 noon to Jesus Christ for my sins and the sins of my family, the sins of my spouse, my morning prayers, evening prayers, Auxilium Christinorum prayers, 6 p.m. Angelus prayers. Taking those times throughout the day, I'm going to go do a holy hour, my weekly holy hour. Taking those things throughout the day and offering your pains to God. This way you're helping out those people, because it's just like water falls downward. Grace goes downward as well. Grace flows downward. It flows from the patriarch, from mom and dad, down to the kids, down to the family line, the family genealogy. And so if you want to do something good for your kids and your grandkids and your in-laws that your kids married into, guess what? Offer your sufferings from them, because as the patriarch and as the matriarch, your sufferings, that grace that you're calling from God through your sufferings, it flows downward, and it's going to help them in some way, shape, or form get closer to Christ and to get to heaven at the end of time. So again, as Catholics, Fulton Sheen used to look at hospitals and say, Catholic hospitals, or any hospital, if there's people in there that are offering their sufferings to Christ, those hospitals are, in heaven's eyes, they're like spiritual nuclear power plants of grace, exploding, disseminating grace throughout the world so that people can be saved.
Yeah, just these people are suffering. What they're going through is just incredible. Most of them have lost their jobs, they've lost family members, etc., and they're used to dealing with the suffering. But we don't have to suffer. Just Jesus doesn't expect us to suffer. He wants us to come to Him so that these things can be lifted from us. But people are just too into what they're into, and it doesn't work for them. We see a lot of suffering just in this ministry. I
think what you're saying is we see a lot of needless suffering.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, because we're all going to suffer to some way, shape, and we're all going to suffer in some way, shape, or form. But needless suffering, when it's brought about by the demons through bad living, through mortal sin, that's needless suffering. I mean, if I'm suffering because I got whatever, okay, this medical problem, that problem, that's normal because the human body's getting older and breaking down. But what you and me see, Eddie, is needless suffering. Yeah. This didn't have to happen. You didn't have to be smoking marijuana every day for 20 years and sleeping with prostitutes every day for 25 years. You didn't have to do this. Yeah.
That's the issue. Just, you're right. Needless suffering. And needless, that term has to come from ignorance, lack of knowledge.
Yeah, there you go. It goes back to that.
Yeah.
Well, that's why we're here every Monday, Eddie. We're trying to provide the knowledge that people need to know. This is basic knowledge. We're not talking about, this isn't like a PhD course or anything. This is basic Catholic knowledge. This is Catholicism 101, but guess what? This is going to form your intellect. It's going to direct your will to heaven, and it's going to help you live in a state of grace and ultimately get to heaven at the end of time. That's a wrap. We'll see you next time. Same Christ time, same Christ channel. We'll see you next week. Jesus 911 two-man card, 2 retired cops of Christ. And remember, we're like a lighthouse amidst a gathering storm. Eddie and me were just trying to redirect people away from the gates of hell. See you next week.
Saint Faustina's Prayer for Priests. O my Jesus, I beg thee on behalf of the whole Church, grant it love and the light of thy Spirit, and give power to the words of priests, so that hardened hearts might be brought to repentance and return to thee, O Lord. Lord, give us holy priests. Thou thyself maintain them in holiness. O divine and great High Priest, may the power of thy mercy accompany them everywhere, and protect them from the devil's traps and snares, which are continually being set for the souls of priests. May the power of thy mercy, O Lord, shatter and bring to naught all that might tarnish the sanctity of priests. For thou canst do all things. Amen. Virgin most powerful, pray for us.
Virgin Most Powerful Radio, sharing the gospel with clarity and charity.